Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the endless messages about saving the planet? From eco-friendly products to green initiatives, it seems like everyone is jumping on the sustainability bandwagon. But here's the shocking truth: over 70% of global greenhouse gas emissions come from just 100 companies. That's right. While we're busy choosing reusable bags and organic produce, the biggest polluters are making decisions that impact our future, often without us even knowing. The idea of sustainability is powerful, but it's also manipulated by big corporations. They create a narrative that makes us think we can shop our way to a better world, while they continue practices that harm the environment. Did you know that more than 90% of the plastic we use is not recycled? Instead, it ends up in landfills or our oceans. In this video, we will uncover the strategies that corporations use to control the sustainability narrative. We'll explore greenwashing, the carbon credit loophole, and the myth of ethical consumerism. You'll discover how lobbyists shape environmental laws to benefit big business, and why sustainability at scale often means more profit for the few rather than real solutions for the many. Join us as we peel back the layers of corporate influence on sustainability. Get ready to see how we can reclaim the narrative and push for real change, starting in our own communities. Together, we can turn the tide on these hidden forces and make a genuine impact on our planet's future. Chapter 1: Greenwashing, the corporate mask. Greenwashing is everywhere, and it's one of the main strategies corporations use to manipulate how we think about sustainability. You've probably heard of it: companies pretending to be green while doing the exact opposite. Take, for example, H&M's Conscious collection. They marketed as sustainable, but investigations revealed that the line only accounted for a tiny fraction of their overall production. The rest? Mass-produced, fast fashion that contributes to landfills at a staggering rate. Greenwashing works because it plays on our good intentions. According to the environmental leader, 66% of global consumers are willing to pay more for sustainable brands, but the reality is, most of these green products are just marketing fluff. A Harvard Business Review study found that 95% of products labeled as green make misleading claims. Think about that, 95%. The strategy here is simple: make the consumer feel good about their purchase, while quietly continuing harmful practices. Companies know that we want to feel like we're making a difference. So they slap a leaf on a label or toss in buzzwords like eco-friendly or natural. Most of the time, it's a distraction. A great example is BP rebranding itself as Beyond Petroleum after the infamous oil spill, all while continuing to invest heavily in fossil fuels. According to TerraChoice, there are 7 sins of greenwashing. The most common? The hidden trade-off, where companies highlight one green aspect of their product while ignoring much larger environmental issues. A paper towel might be made from recycled materials, but the process to manufacture it could still be highly polluting. This kind of tactic fools well-meaning consumers into thinking they're helping the planet. And that's the point: make us think small actions add up, while the bigger, more damaging practices go unseen. Chapter 2: The carbon credit loophole. Carbon credits sound like a great idea, right? Companies can offset their emissions by investing in environmental projects. But here's the catch: it's often a loophole that allows corporations to keep polluting while appearing environmentally responsible. The market for carbon credits has exploded, but not all of them are created equal. Many projects are poorly regulated, and the emissions reductions they promise are either delayed or never happen at all. Here's the problem: buying carbon credits allows companies to essentially pay to pollute. According to a report by Carbon Trade Watch, 40% of carbon offsets bought by companies didn't actually reduce emissions. In fact, some projects were already planned and would have gone ahead with or without the company's purchase. This makes the whole system more of a PR move than a real solution. Shell is one of the biggest players in this game. While they've invested heavily in carbon offsets, they continue to extract and burn massive amounts of fossil fuels. One could argue they're just offsetting the guilt, not the emissions. And the truth is, the system doesn't always work the way it's intended. According to the Nature Conservancy, some carbon offset projects have led to unintended consequences, like displacing local communities or harming biodiversity. The strategy behind this is clever. Corporations can continue with their business as usual, all while claiming they're net zero or carbon neutral. In reality, they're outsourcing their pollution to other parts of the world. It's the equivalent of someone eating fast food every day but paying someone else to exercise for them. It doesn't fix the problem, it just makes it look like it's being fixed. Chapter 3: Corporate Lobbyists versus Real Change. When you think about environmental change, you probably picture passionate activists, but what's less visible are the lobbyists working behind the scenes to water down real progress. Corporations spend billions on lobbying to make sure sustainability policies don't hurt their bottom line. In fact, according to Open Secrets, the oil and gas industry alone spent over $110 million on lobbying in 2023. That's a massive investment to influence government decisions in their favor. These corporate lobbyists play a critical role in shaping environmental policies, but not in the way we'd hope. They're not fighting for clean energy or lower emissions. Instead, they're pushing for loopholes and delays that allow companies to avoid strict regulations. A great example is the fight over carbon taxes. Corporations have lobbied heavily against them, arguing that they would be too costly and damage the economy. But in reality, carbon taxes could drastically reduce emissions if applied fairly. Fossil fuel companies aren't the only ones using this tactic. Big agriculture and chemical companies are also lobbying hard to prevent regulations on harmful practices like pesticide use and water pollution. According to a report from the Environmental Working Group, chemical companies like Monsanto, now Bayer, have spent millions lobbying against stricter environmental protections. The strategy here is to create the illusion of progress without any real sacrifice. Corporations support weak, watered-down regulations that look good on paper but have little real impact. For example, in 2020, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, rolled back nearly 100 environmental regulations, many of which were quietly pushed by industry lobbyists. What happens is that these companies can publicly say they're complying with the law, but the laws themselves have been designed to barely inconvenience them. In the end, it's about control. Big corporations use lobbyists to shape the narrative around sustainability, ensuring that the rules work in their favor. As long as they're the ones writing the script, real, meaningful environmental change will always be just out of reach. If you're finding this information eye-opening, don't forget to subscribe. Stay tuned for more insights on how we can reclaim the sustainability narrative together. Chapter 4: The Myth of Ethical Consumerism. The idea that we can shop our way to a better world is comforting, but it's also misleading. Corporations have brilliantly used the concept of ethical consumerism to shift the burden of sustainability onto individuals. They want us to believe that our personal buying choices will fix the planet. But the reality is that the problem is too big for individual action alone. According to the United Nations, just 100 companies are responsible for 71% of global emissions. No matter how many organic cotton t-shirts or reusable water bottles we buy, that's a hard number to beat. This isn't to say that individual choices don't matter, they do. But the strategy here is for corporations to make us feel responsible for the planet's fate while they continue with business as usual. A great example is Nestlé's bottled water brands. They market them as environmentally friendly, but the reality is that bottled water has a huge environmental impact, from plastic pollution to water source depletion. Nestlé has been criticized for taking water from drought-prone areas and selling it for profit while local communities struggle. In his book The Myth of the Ethical Consumer, Timothy Davini argues that the whole concept of voting with your wallet is flawed because it puts too much emphasis on individual choices. He points out that companies often create problems they then expect consumers to solve through buying their so-called ethical products. It's a brilliant business strategy: sell both the disease and the cure. One of the key tactics is the feel-good marketing angle. Companies like Coca-Cola promote their recycling initiatives, making consumers think they're part of a circular economy. Yet, according to a report from The Guardian, only 9% of plastic is actually recycled globally. So, while consumers may feel virtuous about recycling that plastic bottle, the system itself is deeply flawed. The bottom line is this: ethical consumerism is a distraction. It makes us feel like we have more control over sustainability than we actually do. Corporations are happy to sell us green products, but real change will come from regulating these companies, not just changing what's in our shopping carts. If you found this video informative and inspiring, please hit that subscribe button. Join us in exploring more ways to challenge the narrative and foster real sustainability in our communities.